Greetings from the far side of the galaxy. I'm Fuuri, your host the most, finally doing one of these videos again. And no, you didn't misread that title or thumbnail. Anyways, let's get started. The name of this series is Housamo Heroes, where I walk you through everything you need to know about a certain transient. Today's Housamo hero is the lackadaisical researcher learning the lies that lie behind it all. Of course, I'm talking about Leib Olmai. To begin, Leib is an Ursus transient. He's the only polar bear we've got. Although, despite being a polar bear, he's actually a tree spirit from the world of Tir na Nog, the world based on Celtic mythology. Here in Tokyo, he goes to Ueno Academy, which isn't actually a high school, it's a college. Or maybe it's a high school and a college. I don't think we ever get a straight answer on that. Leib's definitely a college student though. His research file specifically states that he's a graduate student and lead researcher at the laboratory, which is pretty impressive since it tends to be professors and faculties that are lead researchers, not students. The job comes with a lot of responsibilities that he has a bad habit of forcing onto his younger peers. Though it is kind of impressive that while being the lead researcher, he's also the advisor of the Beast Tamers. The Beast Tamers are an Ueno guild that pair problematic transients, beasts, with tamers, their natural counters. For Leib, he's the tamer and Q-Sith is his beast. Q-Sith's power is to kill anything that hears him whine 3 times. Leib's power is to divert damage onto his surroundings, that way guaranteed death from Q-Sith can be avoided. He's one of the few characters who don't have their sacred artifact on display. You can only see it in his 4-star art, and it's that blood red ointment. Like I mentioned before, it has the power to divert damage to his surroundings, although Leib is loath to using it. It's not actually made of blood. The ointment is made from the sap of an alder tree. Alder trees are actually a real thing, notable for their blood red sap and mild medicinal purposes. This ties back into Leib because, like I said, Leib's a forest spirit for alder trees. You know, despite polar bears not living in forest, but whatever. And that acts as a perfect transition into who Leib's based on, that being a forest spirit of the same name, Leib Olmai. Leib Olmai is a god of the Sami people, located in current-day Finland but former-day Lapland. He was one of their major gods, being worshipped daily by some tribes. He was primarily a god of the hunt and prayed to before every outing for good luck. That's because the forest animals were supposed to be his herd. The alder tree is his body and their sap his blood. Although, from time to time, he did appear before humans in the form of a bear. A mythological focus on bears is actually seen across many cultures like the Ainu due to their status as apex predators. Like, no, seriously, bears are terrifying. They can weigh over a ton, can run over 25 miles an hour, and you can't even climb a tree to escape them because they can do that too. Imagine trying to take out one of these with a bow and arrow or even a gun because their skulls are so thick they can deflect headshots. When the Sami people prayed to Leib Olmai for good luck, they didn't just mean finding good game. They very much included not running into bears as part of that. It's no wonder that so many cultures viewed bears as gods of the forest because they basically were and still kind of are in the modern day. And despite all of that, the Sami people were actually known to hunt bears from time to time. We even have some idea of the rituals they'd perform after a successful hunt. The rituals usually involved a paint made by mixing alder sap or alder bark with water. They either doused themselves with a mixture or painted their faces with it. I couldn't find a straight answer. From what I was able to find, I could tell that women and Leib Olmai did not mix. Hunting was a man's thing and women were not only forbidden from doing it, but even being present during the preparations. Damn, he's almost as misogynistic as the average Housamo fan. That being said, it's time we move on to the next section and look at Life Hunter's interpretations. Leib being a bear is a clear reference to Leib Olmai being a bear god. Although polar bears aren't native to the area Leib Olmai was worshipped in, they live way further north. Leib probably should have been a brown bear, all things considered. Everything about Leib's appearance is pretty much a Life Hunter's original. There's not many written accounts of Leib Olmai, let alone art. It's mostly oral tradition. So I can forgive Life Hunters for drawing up something original. His connection to alder trees and alder sap is definitely made clear through the use of his sacred artifact. It's literally an alder sap ointment, referencing alder trees' mild medicinal benefits. Leib Olmai's role as a god of the hunt who decided whether or not you had enough food to survive the winter or got mauled by a bear is basically exactly what's in Leib's past. Oh, and would you look at that, it's a perfect time to transition into Leib's backstory. Leib's story begins in the forest of Tir na Nog as a spirit, the Alder King. It was his job to manage the lives of everything that lived in the forest, whether they ate or starved, prospered or perished, lived or died. Does he let the deer live and return to its fawns, or the hunter return empty-handed to his wife and children? Does he listen to the squirrel who asked for his help, forcing the wounds onto an alder tree for the sake of another? It's never said directly, but I think it's agonizing over these questions that sent Leib across the Rainbow Bridge to Tokyo. Thankfully, Tokyo is definitely a better place for him than the system of Tir na Nog. Well, better for the most part. He didn't have to decide who lived or died, but he still retained the power to do it. Why? Why was he given this power over life and death? What or who gave him that right? That's why he was approached by the Beast Tamers and introduced to Ueno Academy. That's where he conducts his research into biotopes, closed, self-sustained systems. A place that only lets in and doesn't let anything out. You know, like Tokyo. Quite the interesting guy, isn't he? You wouldn't expect him to be suffering from such a moral crisis at first, but I think his character is better for it. And would you look at that, now's the perfect time for Leib's character analysis. Leib occupies an interesting role in the story overall. In the main quest, Leib really serves as a way to give exposition. He's kind of like Shuichi in that he's there to explain stuff that Shiro doesn't get, but he's distinctly not a peer. He's Husamo's Kisuke Urahara, the one dude you go to because he knows more than everyone else. Leib's much more interesting when we get to see him interact with his younger kohais in the Beast Tamers. Since their guildmaster is, I don't know, locked in a kennel down in the basement, Leib's the one to take charge for things in a way similar to an older brother or perhaps even a father. He's the most responsible member of the Beast Tamers, and he's constantly working. He works so much that he actually forces it onto those beneath him, and yet he's still always working. But he also seems keenly aware of who his kohais are as people and knows their shortcomings. Like how he managed to calm down Jamavan during the Nightmare in Ueno event. And his compassion for his kohais appear to be an outcropping of his conflict with his own rule and role. It's touched upon in his character quest, but it recontextualizes a lot of his actions in an interesting way. He works so hard and throws himself at his research to get answers to who gave him his rule and role. And his character quest makes it clear that his questions apply for his kohai as well. He doesn't want to know why he was sentenced to have a terrible gut-wrenching power. He wants to know why they were as well. Like Q-Sith, he's a soft crybaby who kills people when he whines. Why? What kind of almighty creator would say, yeah, let's give this guy the ability to murder people with his tears and then give him anxiety? It's like a cruel joke, and Leib is doing his best to find the punchline. And speaking of jokes, it's time we talk about Leib's units. Leib only has 2 units for some reason, despite being in this game for around, 4 years. He was a main character in the Nightmare in Ueno event. Why didn't he get a limited unit? He was in the event more than Jambavan, Durga, and Kuniyoshi, and yet they got the limited unit, not him. Why? The 2 units he does have are a normal 3 and a normal 4-star. His 3-star is wood attribute and bow type. Its skills are as follows. First up, Life Replacer. When attacking, he gets Guts to himself at 30 and applies Null debuff to himself and adjacent allies at 80. While Null debuff and Guts are pretty good, I do wish the proc was at least 100% because without it, both skills just kinda fumble. Secondly, NB's clothing, which is apparently a dress shirt, jeans, and an ugly tie. After moving, he gets tenacity to himself alongside up to 16 CP. Now only if it gave him some fashion sense. The best I can say for this skill is that it doesn't actively harm him. His third skill is Prayer Dauber, which makes him immune to bind, skill lock, and double lock. When Leib's skills are so weak you can't tell if they're impacting the board or not, does being immune to skill lock or double lock really matter? Finally is Great Tree Strength, which gives him up to 800 HP at phase start, and applies protection to himself and allies in one square at 100%. And after moving, he applies remove debuff to adjacent allies at 30%. The skill was almost mediocre, but that garbage proc on the last thing completely killed it. Oh boy, do I have some feelings about this unit, but we have to move on to his normal 4-star, which has all the same skills. If it was crappy on a 3-star, it's borderline nightmarish on a 4-star, and That's not a 4-star, it's a 5-star? What? Oh my god. This is a 5-star with the same kit as a 3-star. Oh no, wait, it has one unique skill. Prayer Die Bear. A reference to Aldersap making face paint. That's pretty neat. And it lets him give Ardor to allies in one square at phase start at 50% proc. I need to issue a correction. This is not a borderline nightmare, this is a full-blown war crime. What teams do I recommend? None. How do I recommend you play them? Don't. Like seriously, this isn't even a mediocre support unit, it's one of the worst units in the game, period. Not only is his proc garbage, when he does give you the buffs, they're mediocre at best. The only thing he has at 100% are tenacity, CP, and removing bind, skill, and double lock. And that's all to himself, not others, despite being a support unit. What? I need to move on to his relationship chart before I get an aneurysm. Starting with how others feel about Leib, Q-Sith likes him. And yeah, he better, considering Leib's the only thing standing in the way of Q-Sith committing manslaughter, or would it be transient slaughter? Both Jambavant and Alp dislike Leib. The former because Leib forces his work onto him, and the latter because Leib forces him to do work at all. And on the flip side, Leib himself likes no one. Leib does dislike one person, and it's Fenrir because the dude's uptight personality makes him hard to work with. Overall, I think Leib is pretty cool. His goal of learning about Tokyo's system is interesting, and it's always great to see him interact with the other Beast Tamers. The Beast Tamers appear to be the focus of Chapter 14, so I hope we get to see Leib interact with all the new guys. Of course, I'd be remiss to not give Leib Fury's official seal of approval. Now it's time for Patreon shoutouts. For 3 stars, we have special thanks to 87 Werehog, Deku, Zora Rachel, Choron, Garyon Lefay, Dragon King Yara, and Kayun. For 4 stars, we have special thanks to Mickey Moon and Unknown RC, The Death, and Strawberry. For our Super D-Tuber special 5-star shoutouts, we have... First, we have Vanilla Flower, who can't fear their own world. Then, Poor Mage, the Stingy Stinger. Next, Sky King 64, who's panicking at the dollhouse. Finally, Mahagasaur, the super chunky from hell. Thank you for watching, and as always, this is your host Fuuri signing out.